exactly how long should it be? So, the 11 plus essay is one that gets a lot of parents worried, but it's quite formulaic. If you know what to put into it, your child will be fine, honestly. Length is one that comes up a lot, and generally I get asked this question by children, if anything, and it's usually children who don't enjoy writing. They want to know how much they need to write so they can literally hit the marker on the paper and leave it there. Children who enjoy writing often don't ask that question, so that is usually a bit of an alarm bell. If a child is constantly asking how long it needs to be, they're looking for the end, the light at the end of the tunnel most of the time. So how long should it be?
So before we carry on with this amazing video, please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so that you will get notified every time a new Geek School video goes up. Enjoy!
Well, if you have been to Geek School's creative writing platform, which is at www.the11plusessay.co.uk, and if you've watched our free creative writing course, the videos explain a bit about, the right length and so on, and about the key types of creative writing tasks that children can be asked to write. Because there are different types of writing, there isn't a specific length that has to be adhered to for every single type of writing. But I will explain what your child needs to aim for some of those different types of writing tasks. So your normal creative writing piece, for example, write a story entitled The Cave on Top of the Mountain. That should be at least an A4 side page. And if your child writes their plan on the same side, they would need to be looking at writing about a page and a half. Ideally the plan would be, at the back of the page and so on, but it's fine actually to have it at the top, have the title and then sort of start writing thereafter. That's fine. But if the plan is included and, the writing just goes through, you're looking at about a page and a half or, page and a third to a page and a half thereabouts, depending on how much space is used for the plan. This is the same for stories with openers, persuasive writing pieces, should mobile phones be banned, that type of writing, speeches, diary entries, and so on. Now, let's look at letters. So letters, depending on whether it's a formal or informal letter, have the address and the date and so on at the top. So that takes up a lot of the page. So because of that, your child should be aiming for at least sort of like a page and a third to a page and a half of writing. Now, I say to my students that if you have, let's just say your normal standard creative writing task, a solid, well-written, well-checked, well-structured piece of writing that is an A4 side is fantastic and just as good as, one that's a bit longer, but if there is a 2-pager that's littered with errors, lots of repetition, no structure, doesn't guide the reader through the writing and so on, you're better off spending time on a shorter piece that is succinct, makes sense, and is error-free as possible, and it's an A4 side. Long and long-winded pieces that have a very loose structure, that literally jump from one idea to the next with no, guiding of the reader through, no description to explain why we've gone from the seaside to the moon, for example, isn't worth the effort, really. As I was saying before, the 11 plus essay is very formulaic. It's a demonstration of the child's ability to write, firstly, their ability to use punctuation, their ability to use grammar in the correct form, and their ability to use a variety of words, so that's what the key demonstration is. And so there's no need to have an overly long-winded and overly complicated structure, because there just isn't the time. Most of the writing tasks last for somewhere between 20 minutes to half an hour, depending on, the school's preference or the exam board's preference. And so it's not a school project where, several days or a couple of weeks and so on is given to put together. It's a very short window of time for writing. So there has to be a formula, an engaging introduction, a description of what's happening. You need to get to know the characters a bit more. And then whatever the problem is that needs to be solved somewhere in there thereafter. And then, winding down in the story and then having the conclusion, whether it's learning a moral from it or a cliffhanger and so on. One thing I will say is, certainly for my students at Geek School Tutoring, where the intros like One Day or Once Upon a Time are banned, and outros, in the conclusions like, and it was all a dream. No, it wasn't. You just couldn't be bothered to finish the story properly. Or you ran out of time. Most of the time, that's because no plan was written. So look out for these things. Hopefully they won't transpire themselves in your child's writing. But if they're there, they need to be zapped out. Make the introduction engaging, something exciting, or, not starting the story from the beginning of the day. Lots of children do that. It's not necessary. We don't need to go from jumping out of bed to having breakfast to then, looking at going to the seaside or whatever the writing task has asked, and then gradually getting into the story. We could literally just be at the seaside at the start of the story, and whatever happens, that's the pinnacle part of the story, soon comes in. And what happens with that is you get a very engaging piece of writing, which scores top marks. So I hope that was helpful. So the length, somewhere between an A4 side and a third to a half, an A4 side, or an A4 side and a third, or an A4 side and a half, depending on how long the planning takes in terms of the page, how far down it gets to, and so on. So I hope that's been helpful, and please do check out our writing portal, the 11plusessay.co.uk. Lots of good resources on the free course that would be very helpful and beneficial. Thanks for watching.